Hello and welcome to Among the Lilies. This is a show for ladies who are tired of pretending and are ready to be real. I'm your host, Cameron Frad, and today I have my wonderful friend, Angie Span, with me. Angie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Sláinte. We got our coffee on. It's not Irish, even though I said sláinte, but I just thought it'd be fun.
And we're not drinking alcohol.
Mm-mm.
Or are we?
Or are we? There you go. That's the question. I think it's a little. Actually, it's not that early anymore. I was going to say it was too early, but
it's not too early.
Nope, mass is over. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, and I feel like I have to put in a little asterisk. I don't talk.
Disclaimer.
Yes. And that's probably a thing of pride because I've never done this before.
Did I not have you on the podcast before?
No.
Okay, we talked about it at least.
Possibly. I don't know.
Angie was in my women's group back in Georgia. I had a great, wonderful group of women that would meet often. And sorry, this is really loud. I should not be opening this as we're recording.
And I mostly spend my days talking to a 4, a 6, an 8, and a 10-year-old. And so.
Which are all really cool people.
They are. But I'm just out of that world of academia and
I'm not in that world.
Well, higher conversations, but I love them. But yeah, as she said, my name is Angie. We live in Georgia. My husband and I live in Georgia, the northern part, the pretty part with beautiful mountains. We have 4 children, ages 4 to 10. I am a stay-at-home mom, and I hybrid homeschool the children. So they're home 3 days a week with me. And we're getting through our list of things to do every day on those days. And then they're at school Tuesdays and Thursdays. Other than that, I really love to read. I do enjoy cooking when I don't have people screaming at me that they're hungry. And, catering to I'm trying to eat a certain way, catering to certain dietary needs. We were talking about how it just takes the joy out of it. When you can't cook whatever you want with whatever ingredients you want, it takes some of the joy out of it. You're like, I can't cook anything from that cookbook. I have to stick to this cookbook, and this stuff is good, but anyway, it's just a little more difficult. And my husband and I, although we're kind of taking a little bit of a break while we build a house, we like homesteading. So having chickens, I like gardening. I like learning about all the factors that go into growing food, being successful at it. I'm not usually super successful at it.
No, you guys do really.
But I try.
Really good job. Yeah. No, I think what I love about y'all is we're just gonna figure it out. Let's get peacocks. That'll be fun. Let's get turkeys.
That's John Henry.
I know, but you support him in it.
Mm-hmm.
I would be like, I am so sick of having so much animal poop on my porch. No more animals.
Yeah, I guess I have built up
kind of poop tolerance.
A tolerance just to the way that he is, and I appreciate that he's that way because I would overthink it and I would be like, we have to research this. We have to read 20 books about it before we do it.
Nope, we've got these animals.
I'm very jealous of the fact that you got honey from your bees because we've had bees for years, and he was always afraid to get any of the honey out to disturb the bees and kill them. And so I was just like, why do we have these? We literally we got honey one time and there was something weird about it, and we had
but they help your garden,
moths and all these things. So yeah, but I'm just I'm ready to see some, of course in a perfect world we would be
fruits of your labor,
completely self-sufficient. And every time I go to the store, I hate myself because I think I could grow all this stuff, but I can't. So this show should be about learning my limitations.
That's what my last show was on.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, it seriously was. It was just me, and I was talking about limitations. I was talking about
very much.
Yeah, I was talking about my health stuff, and it was actually last Sunday that I recorded it on Monday, but on Sunday I took a shower in the morning and I shampooed my hair, and I was wrecked. I had to lay in bed. I passed out for an hour or two. We ended up going to noon mass just so I could still go to mass. And I was so exhausted. And then I came home. I sat in that recliner chair and couldn't get up all day. I was in excruciating pain.
Just from washing your hair.
That was my limit. And so I talked about like different people have different limits, and you know me
Yes.
from when I used to have massive limits, and now it's like shampooing my hair before mass. Like, and mass is really hard too. But
Yeah.
like, I can't shampoo my hair the day I go to mass. And even today, like, I wasn't able to stand through most of mass. I had to stay sitting. And so like, it's really like sad limits. It's
Yeah.
not like no.
But
your
you
limit.
remain so joyful within it because, and I feel like with my limits, I just don't recognize them. And then I just keep expecting this, like,
to be back to normal.
just this, like, to be amazing all the time, to do everything perfectly.
Yeah.
And then I don't meet that. And then I get just so down. And so instead of just having, you know, my.
Oh, I get like that too, though. I do get down. And then it's like, okay, I can't be in this. Like, I can't be in this rut of like sadness
terrible.
and I can't do anything. And because, well, our husbands have very different personalities.
Mhm.
You and Matt are more alike. And John Henry and I are more alike. Like, we would murder each other, and
Oh,
you and
gosh.
Matt would like never leave the house, and you'd be like, "Whoa, is all the things you're talking about? All this deep metaphysical whatever? I don't know." But we would legit kill each other. But I think because of that role reversal, I can't sit in that. Like, I can't,
Yeah.
because then he would get really depressed. So like, I have to like not overcompensate, but I think it's more, okay, yeah, I need to be positive through this. I need to, because I think everyone would get really sad and dark if.
Well, yeah.
And that's just part of my coping too. Like, I
Yeah.
need to keep my head on straight and be like, all right, Lord, by your grace, like, give me the grace to get through this day, through this moment, through this pain of whatever it is. And
Yeah.
But you're like that too. You totally are. You
Yeah.
rely on God.
No, I do, but I'm a little bit more of the melancholic, like go into myself and feel really sad and sorry for myself and like I'm a terrible human being. I don't know if I told anybody this, but basically, like, this is how my day starts. I wake up later than I feel that I should have.
Yeah.
Immediately in my head, you're bad because
You're behind.
Yes, I am behind. You're bad because you didn't wake up at this time. And then therefore you didn't have a good prayer time and you didn't make your kids good breakfast. And they're eating junk food, you know, before you get up, or they watched a movie, or you didn't start schoolwork at this time. Bad, 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 bad. And I didn't even realize that I was doing that, like that I was so mean to myself until I really, until someone was like, "You're really mean to yourself."
Yeah.
And they actually
It's like, back off. Be nice to my friend Angie. I like her, so stop being so mean to her.
She actually told me to do this thing where, like, and I didn't do it, but where, like, you start your day with, like, paper clips or something in your right hand pocket. And every time that you say something mean to yourself, you transfer a paper clip over, and by the end of the day, see how many paper clips are on the left side. And you can do that for positive, too.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't do the positive. I just do the negative. So
I think it's also thinking about your kids. Like, someone once told me, and I have a child who is more melancholic. I have a couple, but one in particular that is more melancholic and just very hard on herself. And like, even when she was like 2 and 3, I'd be like, oh my goodness, like what? Sometimes I don't like myself. I'm like, why would you say that? You're amazing. But I think it's that melancholic, like just aware. And so I'm like, I need to be so aware of any negative self-talk, even if it's in my head, to combat that.
Yeah.
So she doesn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for the sake, and not that you're saying it out loud,
no.
but it's like you need to fight it that much more. So when and if one of your kids struggle with it, you can help them through that.
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
think, what if she thought this? Like, what if one of your girls thought, ooh,
oh yeah, I absolutely would be so sad. If
right?
But I never like didn't like myself or love myself until more recently. Like, and that's really sad. Like, that's really sad to say that.
I think we all go through it though. Like, I hated myself in high school. Like, junior high and high school, I had so much self-hatred. And I was so mean to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I haven't really struggled with it in adulthood as much, but I think it's because I hit my rock bottom then.
Okay.
And it was like the depression, the self-hatred, all of that stuff. It was just such a dark place.
Yeah.
And I couldn't survive in that. So I had to hit my rock bottom, and I did. And then it was only by God's grace I had beautiful people that were like, you believe so many lies about yourself. And so they had me write truths to all the lies. And actually, Kristalina Everett just came out with a new book, and I wrote a chapter in it on lies, and is in particular lies that I believed about myself, or we as women believe, and how it's Satan is the accuser, right? And he wants us to believe these lies about ourselves because it'll prevent us from doing amazing, wonderful, beautiful things.
Yeah.
And if he can keep us focused on nitpicking on ourselves, then he doesn't have to worry about all the good that the Lord wants to do with us and the gifts.
Well, I could never relate to like self-loathing or self-hatred or whatever. I really couldn't. I in high school and stuff, like some girls were just so like they just hated themselves.
Yeah, and you couldn't relate.
So I think just I've had a very difficult year mental health wise, and I think that's what kind of pulled me into it. And I had a point that I wanted to swing around with that, but I don't remember what it was.
That's okay. You'll get there.
Yeah.
So why do you think that it's something that you've been dealing with the past year? Is it the other? Because
maybe it's just been so hard to just do what I need to do. And I never struggled with it so much before. And now maybe because I'm failing more at it, I'm more critical of myself, you know, like, and being like, I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I know that that's not the case with everyone. I did. And it brought me joy. Mm-hmm. And in this season, it's not bringing me as much joy. And,
do you think part of it is you actually have time to think about it now? Or when you had so many littles, like you couldn't think? You didn't?
No, I think when you're struggling mentally, you're so much me, that it's so hard to see like the good things that are happening. And I've talked to some people about this recently. Like if you're not taking the time to realize and to see what you're grateful for, gratitude, then everything could just seem terrible all the time. So I have to remind myself, look around and see, even though this is not bringing you joy, you still have.
Oh gosh, it scared me. Okay, that window just blew open. Sorry. Holy cow. So that's part of the beauty of an old house. Sometimes the windows don't stay locked and they're supposed to. Okay, yeah, no, I feel like this was me after Peter. So when I like had postpartum after Peter, I felt like it was, yes, I was so negative and in my own head and me, and like all my negativity, it was so hard to be grateful for anything. And just the joy, I felt like joy was so far away.
Yeah. And
there was like this big dark cloud over my head. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, and there are lights in it. Like every time that I've had a difficult time, truly, I have seen God's hand at work so clearly. Well, maybe not so clearly, but I have to look for it and see, okay, what has he done? So the first time that I struggled really badly with mental health issues, I basically gave my whole life to the Lord because I felt so desperate that I was like, I will finally surrender if you will help me through this. Yeah. Please help me. The second time that it got really bad, I was pregnant and I'd just gone through many like big life changes, like moving, marriage, pregnancy, new job, like the things that they say are the most stressful things.
And you
like,
just had a bunch of them.
All. Yeah. I did them all. I'm trying to. What did I learn that during that time? Well, part of it was that I was married now instead, and I needed to like kind of cling to my husband more so during that, and kind of let him into like, okay, this is a problem that I have, and I hate that you see this, but this is part of who I am. Yeah. And like very early on in the marriage, and that was like humbling for me.
So humbling.
And then this time, I now have 4 children, and I'm like struggling to stay afloat. And I part of what I learned through this time was that I think I've always been a little bit afraid of dying and, you know, lived more so for this life than for the next. And just struggling so much, I desired like to be in heaven. I mean, I desired so much, not necessarily like to die right this second, but like just for all the pain, just to know that like there is no pain in heaven, like, and that's where I want to be. And so to just kind of be at peace with like, Lord, whenever you have me leave this earth, you know, I'll be ready.
Yeah.
And before, I always felt like I was kind of like, I just want to stay here forever. I just want to cling to it. So, yeah, he's taught me something like through each of the really, really hard times. Also, I feel like I now have such a bigger, I always get these two words mixed up, empathy, empathy, towards other people who are suffering.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes we just, it's like we care that people are suffering, but we don't get it. Yeah, we don't get it.
I called a friend of mine from San Diego that suffered horribly with anxiety and depression. And after I had Peter, when my health stuff just, my mental health tanked, and it was postpartum and anxiety. And I remember calling her and being like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what you were, and not that I belittled it. I think that I was good for her because she'd just come to my house. Like, she'd call her mom and she'd be worried. And like, she always thought her kid was going to die. And like, the baby was fine, you know, but she just had so much anxiety. Like, oh my goodness, he may have accidentally eaten a piece of this rug. Like, is he going to die? And I'm like, no, he's fine. Like, I was overly, everything's fine. Yeah. And then I call a nurse friend, I'm like, hey, I don't know if this is actually fine, but I told her it's fine. So what do we do here? And she's like, okay, you know, whatever. But like, after I went through it, I was like, I'm so sorry. And I don't think I ever purposely belittled it, but I was always like, just kind of get over it. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, just think more positive. And it's like, that's not, you can't do that. You can't snap out of it. Like, I remember even the first phone call I made to a friend of mine when I don't think I realized I was having postpartum really bad, but I remember Matt saying like he just wanted his wife back. And I remember calling a friend of mine and be like, I don't know what's wrong with Matt. He thinks something's wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. I just want to stay in my pajamas all day, and I don't want anyone to need anything from me, and I'm just exhausted, and I only want to wear my robe. And she's like, okay, Cameron, that's fine. I'm like, I am not depressed. She's like, cool, totally fine. What I want you to do is call your doctor and let him know that you need postpartum medication. Tell him what you just told me, and just let him give you medicine and see how you feel. Within 24 hours, the dark cloud that was like gloom and doom over me lifted. And like, I wasn't like instantly fine, but I could function. Yes. And I needed that. I needed to function. And then I kind of like functioned for like, I don't know, maybe a year with the medication, which helped me so much. Yeah. But
then you want to thrive.
Yeah. And then you want to thrive. You don't want to just function. You want to thrive.
You want to thrive. And you want your children to not think that you hate every aspect of taking care of them. Like, oh, my daughter is so sweet. Did I tell you this? She recently started saying to me, thank you for everything. I'm sorry for everything. Aww. Like, she just, and she's very much like that. Like, when she prays, she'll be like, I want to pray for everything that's good. Like, very much that, like, perfectionism type thing. But, like, just, she sees that I'm struggling. And she's like, I'm so sorry for everything. And she's only 8. So she's already realizing that, like, things that they do stress me out, and that I do a lot of things for them. Yeah. And I'm like, that makes me so happy. I'm like, I'm so, like, you are so welcome. Or she'll be like, oh, do you want me to pay for that? Like, that food? I'm like, no, you are not paying for food. Like, you do not need to pay for food.
That's so sweet that she even sees and wants to.
Yes. Yeah. So, gosh, I keep thinking of things to say like while you're talking, and then I totally
No, you're okay. That's okay. That's part of this. We're just having a chat.
Yeah, I guess
me and my lovely bush here.
That's real life.
It is.
Your lovely bush.
Yeah, I think that when kids notice, I'm sorry, there's like a wasp or something. Actually, Matt went hunting earlier. There's duct tape over there. I don't know if it's in the shot or not, but he killed one.
Oh yeah, I see that. Oh my gosh, and there's like, you must have like a wasp nest.
You know what I think it is? I don't think it's in the curtain. I think it, I killed it, but sorry, kind of freaked out. I think when that flew open, some flew in.
Mm.
So I think there may be something right outside this window. But see, there's a honeybee, so that one's fine. Why didn't that one come in?
I've also, like, I've never struggled with this, but I, like, right now, I feel sort of, what is the word? Not seen. You know, like, for what I do. My husband, he gets, you know, he does so many things, and he's so good at what he does, and he's really using his gifts and talents. And it's in a public way, though, so he gets
applauded.
Lots
and
of
words of
affirmations, which he needs. And I kind of, like, had to say to him, like, I need you to do that for me, because I'm not getting it from anybody. Mm-hmm. You know, most of the time your kids are not super, like, thankful, saying, Mom, I realize how much, except that one daughter.
Which is
I
so
realize
great,
everything that you're doing for me, and I really, really appreciate it. Instead, they're just more, like, whining and complaining about what you're not doing.
Yes.
And
not noticing the million things you are doing. Matt used to say, him and Jason would talk about it, Jason Everett, that him and Matt would get applauded on stage. Meanwhile, Crystalina and I are covered in vomit, have kids pulling our hair out, stressed out, especially, like, if they give a big talk that's going to be amazing and wonderful and fruitful, we get attacked. Like, they don't. We do. Our family is, like, under such crazy spiritual attack and warfare. And it's like, there's no thanks in that. And it's just pure attack. And it is. It's like, I need you to appreciate me. And it's not that, it's not like a needy thing, but it's, I think, being aware and saying, like, I need you to say that you're glad that I'm doing this or that I'm doing that.
Yeah. And not resent. There's a little bit in me that's tempted to sort of resent the fact that everyone thinks you're great, and I'm just sitting here, you know, in the dust, covered with vomit. Behind
I think you're great. I think you're so great. That's why I wanted to have you on.
No, and and then that sounds like selfish.
But it's not. No, it's not. Because I'm the same way. It's not selfish, but you want to be seen. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the desire of all of our hearts.
And just by him. Like, it doesn't even need to be everybody. And I also told him, please tell me that you, even if you don't necessarily, like, believe it, your confidence in me to do certain things makes me believe more in myself. So even if you have to fake it, you know, like, maybe you're not that confident that I'm gonna get all the kids schooled, get dinner, and clean the house before you get home. But if you're just not like, oh, well, you know, try to pick up before I get home and don't really, like, express confidence. That's kind of a dumb example, but
no, that's a very good example. I have a couple of friends who need their husbands for little everyday things that they cannot do. And I don't know if it's them feeling like they can't do it, or if their husband is saying, it's okay, you don't have to do it, I'll come do it for you, or I'll do it with you. Where we just have a different marriage and a different relationship. Like, your husband travels because of hunting or whatever, and Matt for speaking. And it's like, I had to figure it out. Like, I had to get it all done. And I'm in a different season now where I actually need him more because of my health stuff or whatever. And I'm like, I need you. And then also learning things like, he feels love through physical touch and words of affirmation. But I'm like, if I make you dinner, like, he'll be like, oh, I just ate. I'm like, can I talk to you for a second? I've legit done this and pulled him aside into the kitchen. I'm like, maybe you don't appreciate that I just spent an hour and a half cooking dinner for everyone, but I'm going to make all of them eat, and I would feel very loved if you would eat. And he's like, of course, I'm going to eat dinner. And so, like, now he knows. Or he, like, do a fasting thing. He's like, oh, I'm fasting now. And I'm like, you can't fast over dinner. And he's like, but I'm praying for whoever. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, it is a greater sacrifice for you to eat because I made you this meal. And we haven't had to have the conversation too many times, but once or twice. And then he will take food on his plate, even if he's not hungry. And I'm like, please don't go eat something right before. Like, that's disrespectful to me because I prepared this food. And he's like, oh, let's just do something quick for the kids. Like, let's give them cereal. And I'm like, no. Like, this is part of how I want to love our family is by making a nice dinner or... Yeah. And it's not even that nice. Like, it's basic things.
But it's, like, nourishing, and I love nourishing. Like, I love putting a meal on the table that I know is
good for everybody.
Yeah. It's like providing all the things that they need. So,
And then just being loved in that way and seen in
Yeah.
that way. And I think communicating with our spouse or roommate or whoever, but especially spouse in marriage, it's like, okay, we need that. We need them to know this is
Yeah.
how I feel loved. This is how I feel supported.
So I feel like I'm getting more aware of that. And I'm like, this is 11 years into marriage. How am I just like learning how to communicate what I need and not feel bad about it? Like we do need things. Like, that's probably part of the problem. I didn't feel like I needed things.
And do you find that John Henry was able to tell you that much sooner what he needed?
You mean sooner in our marriage?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
I think we're both learning to do it.
Okay.
Because I think, and part of me, like, yeah, if I was upset because he wouldn't eat the meal, instead of maybe saying that in like the right setting or like, you know, pulling him aside, I would just be like mad.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. No, I'm guilty of that as well.
But like,
for sure.
But definitely like saying something, but saying it in the right way, because I also have learned that like, you want to start a fight, or do you want to just tell them from a place of your heart, which they can tell when you're doing that. That hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
And if they're, you know, a loving, understanding spouse, they will take that and you know, try to do something different next time.
Yeah.
And so I realized we're just starting, like 11 years into marriage. We're like just starting to like learn
We're
this.
still figuring it out. We're 16 years in. 15, 16? I don't know. Don't tell that. I don't know. He knows. He's so good at knowing.
He knows.
I'm like,
we always just,
we
our
got married in
son's
2006.
10.
Yeah,
We've been
Liam's
married
14,
11.
15, so maybe 16 years. It's 15 or 16. I can't remember. But maybe 16. I don't know. But I feel like there's more freedom in it to say, okay, this is what I need. This is, and then I think it's also like, I don't know, maybe having more time to reflect on it or something. But yeah.
Well, and the longer you're married and say the more complicated things get, like jobs and children, when I felt like I couldn't do anything because I was just so anxious that I couldn't function and all I could think about was my anxiety, that's when I realized there's certain things that influence this. There's certain things that can really help this, and I need to tell him those things, and I need to make sure that I'm doing those things. And he's so supportive. I think it scares the heck out of him, but he doesn't feel like he has to fix it.
That's good.
He feels completely inadequate to understand or fix it. But he will give me the space to, you know, go see a therapist, go exercise, go get coffee. Like he's always, and it's me that's the one who's like not doing the thing. Yeah.
And do you feel like sometimes you think it would be selfish to do that? I think
I'm feeling less and less that way.
Yeah. So I think that's something that comes with age.
Oh,
so I think when you are 20 or 24, however old, like when I only had 1 or 2 kids and it was like, go do something. And I'm like, no. I'm going to be a sacrificial mom and I'm going to stay in it. And then I'm going to be
miserable.
Yeah. And then I hit my point where I'm like, I lose it on the kids. And I'm like, this isn't who I want to be. And it's like, no. It is way less selfish for me to go and have that coffee date or to go work out or to go whatever and have my kids with a babysitter or with my husband. Like that is not selfish. That is self-care.
No. And this is a shout out to my mom because like through every one of my children, she's always the voice. And I'm always kind of mad at her. I'm like, don't you want me to be open to life? Like, don't you want me to have all these children? And what she's thinking of is like, okay, like she knows because she went through it herself, like having 5 children. Like, you need to take care of yourself. And now I'm realizing, like, my mom did that. Like, my mom woke up and she put clothes on, and she put a little bit of makeup on, and she, you know, we went to 5-day-a-week school. So I've actually been thinking about this a lot lately. I'm like, what did she do? Like, I know she was doing, you know, grocery shopping and signing us up for things, but you know, maybe that was the reason why her mental health just kind of remained. I know she had to work at it, and so every
finding
time I'm
that
like,
time. Yeah.
Mom,
do you do something on the 2 days a week the kids are at school for you?
Well, yes, I do. I will go to a coffee shop sometimes, and this is not just for me, but this helps like organizational. I'll just like go through all my emails and it'll be like, oh, you need to update this, or you need to send us this paperwork, or blah, blah, blah. And I'll do that. I'll also usually work out. I will sometimes go get a massage.
That's awesome. I just hired Julia Pudish's sister-in-law.
Oh, yeah?
To come one day a week because I found, because I'm homeschooling 5 days a week now, right? So my
her
kids
sister.
Her sister-in-law.
Catherine. Oh.
No, her sister-in-law, Jenna Edwards. She's married
Anthony.
to, yeah.
Okay,
Anthony.
I don't know her.
Oh, she's so sweet. So I met her, I re-met her because I met them at like Catholic Family Land or whatever.
Yeah.
But I met her and she's homeschooled and she's an education major. And I was talking about what she was doing. And she's like, I just want to stay home and have kids. But they're newly married, right? Yeah. She doesn't have any kids yet. And I was like, so what are you doing? She's like, someone asked me to like kind of tutor, so I'm going to do that. I'm like, do you want to do that another day a week?
Please.
Because I needed someone where I could be like, even just to know that I have the day off and like we're still new at it, you know, but I'm like, okay, that's my day that I can come up here, sit at my desk, get stuff done. I can record a podcast. And just knowing that I have that time. And then she also is an education major. I am so inadequate when it comes to writing and spelling.
I know, they're like, edit your child's paper, and I'm like,
I don't know how to do this.
I know when things sound wrong, but I don't really know what's.
And I don't know why. And so I'm like, it'll be good for them to have someone they could go to. And then I also don't feel judged by her. Like if she was just an education major, I'd feel judged and be like, sorry, you know that your sixth grader is on a first grade level. Like I don't think any of my kids are like that. But I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I know there's so many holes. And so I'm like, this is what I'm doing. But you could do more stuff with them or less.
Yeah.
But just knowing that I have that time, that I can have me time. And I was thinking about booking a massage, like either next week or the week after for my body. And it's like, she'll be here at the house. I don't need to. And I think I do have kids that are old enough to stay home alone, but I think I want to be with them. And I don't know until I'm like, I really need a break. So to like have that scheduled time. Yeah. And I've heard people say that, or like hiring someone to look after the littles so they can homeschool the bigs or whatever.
Yeah, I almost had to do, or I got to the point last year where I needed that, but I couldn't get it. It was like either, like the person couldn't drive to my house, so I would have had to go.
Yeah, I did that. I did that where I drove 30 minutes to get someone to be there at the house, and then I drive 30 minutes to bring them home. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm in the car for 2 hours a day to have this girl, and she was amazing, and it was totally worth it. But to have her at my house for like 3 hours. Yeah. And then she eventually started playing soccer, and then it worked out because then I could just drop her off at the field, and then it was like, okay, I had her longer. But yeah, you've got to weigh the pros and cons.
I just got through that year. And then now, I mean, every year you hear this, like in schooling, like every year is a new year and a new adjustment, and your kids are in a new grade. And the longer we do this hybrid, the more like I feel like I've got this. Yeah. Especially like after my son's like the experiment, and he's the first one, and then I'm like, all right, now I'm doing 5th grade again, and like we're doing these books, and I just feel more equipped to do it, and I don't feel like the material is over my head so much because they are. They're doing it at school too, you know, like
it's both and.
I'm not doing it perfectly, but I'm also.
And I think there's a freedom in that. Like you don't need to do it perfectly. Yeah. Like we were talking earlier. Like what is your goal? Are you trying to get your kids into Harvard? No. Like no. If my kids even wanted to go, I don't think you should go.
Last year when I couldn't do it perfectly was when I accepted that I couldn't do it perfectly. Like I absolutely couldn't. You could never do it perfectly, but I absolutely couldn't even strive for perfection.
I think I
became okay with it.
I think it was a blessing in disguise. But when like I was told and they were so great about it. So Liam was 1st grade, Avila was kindergarten.
This is
Bosco, and they were so great. But they're like, your son is falling behind. He can't do this. And I'm like, I have a baby on a feeding tube. I'm dying here at home. Could you just? I'm okay if he doesn't even keep up, but I can't pull him home. I have no options. And they were so great. And they're like, okay, we're going to help you. Like we will get through this season and we will help you. Yeah. But like, this is not like, it wasn't working, but they were so lovely to see. Like, I think they probably just saw such desperation in my face. And I'm like, I'm drowning. I am drowning. And I have an unhealthy baby and I'm doing my best. And that's fine. We're not going to kick him out. You don't need to worry about it.
No grades,
and they were no grades. We're not going to grade them. We're not going to worry about it. And And it was so freeing to be like, okay, so like I think I learned like really early on in my kids' schooling, I can't do it perfectly.
Yeah.
And it does take a village, and it's like, okay. And I think I also had way too high of an expectation of my kids at that time. But it was like, okay, I can't do that. I can't meet that. And I think we all find, I don't know, I think that if your kids are at a 5-day-a-week, you hit this in a different way. But I think when you're homeschooling, academically, you kind of hit it. But I think that there was something that you said earlier when we were chatting about things that we like had begged God for, and then like realizing that it was a blessing.
Okay, so that I can tie that in. So also like we're having some fertility issues, and so on my days off, like that's some other stuff that I'm trying to do. Like I'm trying to like figure out certain supplements and whether or not just kind of what road to go down. We've been blessed that like all of our children, like we conceived very easily and quickly. You know, pretty well spaced. You know, it wasn't like I got pregnant when my baby was 3 months old. Like they were a year or so, and then I would get pregnant again, and that happened 4 times, and then nothing. And so I almost feel like at a certain point your body's like, I need a break, and it just stops functioning correctly. And you know, in my mind and in my heart, I'm like, where's the next one? Like I want another one. And I feel blessed to have felt that, because I also would judge other people when they were like, I just really can't have like another one right now. And I'd be like, oh, like you don't want to be open to life? Like they still were being open to life, but there was that judgment on them because I didn't personally feel that way when I had all my other kids. And then last year happened. Like we always go back to last year. Then last year and this year happened, and suddenly I'm like, I still so badly desire more children. And you know, we're still like investigating what could be potentially the problem, because I feel like hormonally, if you're not right, it can cause all sorts of issues. So it's not even necessarily to achieve pregnancy, but if I'm then feeling like I can do this, then God willing, you know, children will come from it. But I texted a friend of ours who experienced infertility for a very long time, and she just prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed for another child.
Like 9 years.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think she was 9 when she had.
And then, you know, then randomly, like, got pregnant 9 years later. And
so she had, I think at the time, a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old. Nothing. No pregnancy, no miscarriage, nothing. And then, got pregnant.
Said to her, don't you feel like...
And she just had another little one. So
yeah.
she has a brand new baby, a 1-year-old, 10-year-old, and a 13-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah, I said, when you look back now, do you wonder if maybe God was, you know, knew what he was doing, if he was saving you from something that really would have been terrible and detrimental to you? And she says, yeah, I mean, it's hard enough now having these 2 little ones. I can't imagine having had done it when my other 2 were really young. And now I have all this help, and it's really wonderful. And I think the same thing, like, my circumstances are definitely different because I did have 4 in a row. But maybe like the Lord is trying to teach me other things right now. Yeah. And I just have to be at peace with that. And I am becoming at peace with that. And I almost felt in prayer that like, he was saying like, are you okay if you don't ever have any more children? Yeah. Like, and yeah, I have to be, you know, I have to just be at peace with that.
It's a hard place to be.
Yeah.
Especially like, when you feel like it's been taken from you too soon.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that resonates with you.
Yeah.
So, but I still very much feel like hopeful and that this is not it, but it could be, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. But trusting him in it.
Yeah. And trusting that, so we called it A Severe Mercy, like that book by Sheldon Bennett. I don't know how to say it.
I need to look it up, but
you have it on your bookshelf.
Oh, do I? Okay, you'll have to show it to me, and I'll have to start reading it.
It's very hard to read, but they were friends with C.S. Lewis.
Okay,
I believe. I'm really bad at remembering books.
That's okay. No, after this, I want you to give it to me, and I'll take a picture and put it up on Instagram, and y'all can see it. But I want to read it because I love severe mercy. Like I love, like even
like it's severe, but it's a mercy, and it's
Yeah.
actually saving you from something that you didn't realize that, like, you wanted it so badly, but you didn't realize that it maybe wasn't good for you.
yeah.
And so that's like the best way, because I believe that God is loving. And when you believe that God is loving, you don't believe he's punishing you.
No,
You
he
see
has
like
he has a
sees
way.
all
Like
things.
even Gideon Mercy, one of the ones that I lost, like I was scheduled to have my hysterectomy because my health was just so bad, and then I tested positive, and so I was pregnant for a very short period of time, but he saved my life. Like without that, they would have done like a robotic surgery, and my uterus, bladder, ovaries, and bowel were all like a spider web, and they were all glued to my C-section scar. And so I saw an endometriosis specialist after. I'm like, what would have happened if they had cut me open? And they're like, they may not have been able to stop all the bleeding. Like everything was just such a hot mess at that point. And the one before that I had lost, I almost died with, and I'm like, okay, God, like you in your severe, I love the severe mercy.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know it all. Like I miss these babies and long for them every day and wish they were with us. And then I'm so thankful for Peter, who almost didn't make it, right?
Yeah,
and
and you look at Peter now, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's like,
I
Lord,
love Peter.
you were so great. Like God is so good. And I think what's hard for me is like even my kids, like I think that's why we steal other people's babies at mass. Like they long for more little siblings. And then even like
with my kids too.
and then even like the possibility of adopting. I'm like, I do it in a heartbeat. And just my health, the way it's been the last few years, it's like, okay,
you have limitations.
You have limitations, yeah. And like yeah, so it's like, okay, Lord, like I trust in your severe mercy and your goodness that you know so much better than the desire of my heart. And this is like a cross that I have to carry.
For him, it's just mercy. For us, it's a severe mercy.
Yes. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's a better way of putting it,
and we're
right?
like, why? And we're mad. But I just think that's a beautiful way. And so in the book, these two people are just so madly in love with each other. Almost to the point where like they have this pact or this like agreement that they are going to share everything. Like they want to feel everything the same way together. And at a certain point, like, and they weren't even like faithful people until later. And then they kind of walked through that journey together. And then she gets sick and she ends up passing away. And he saw her death as a severe mercy, because if she had stayed with him, like that was almost like an impediment because of the way that they, because of the way that they wanted to share everything. And so after that, I was like, what a beautiful way to look at your wife dying, like as a severe mercy. And so, you know, I have to believe, and I do believe that suffering is terrible, and that God does not cause our suffering, but he can bring so much good fruit from it. And when I'm in the moment of the suffering, I am so like I have all the feelings, the bad, the mad, like the anger,
you don't
why
want
me?
Why me?
Yeah. I don't like
and then it's
ask
not fair.
for suffering.
Not even
a
for
saint.
me.
I don't ask for suffering.
Yeah, but I always see it as more of an injustice for my husband or the kids. I'm like, I'm fine. Like if you want to give me this, I will take this on. But when it affects them and they suffer because of it, like that's what really hurts.
Yeah, and I wouldn't wish like when my kids kind of start to act like a little anxious, I'm like, oh, are they gonna grow up and be like anxious? And that'll be a hard part of motherhood. I know like my mom experienced that, like just to see your children suffer as adults and not to be able to fix them or help them in the same way you can now with like we think it's
take away the pain. You kiss a boo-boo.
Yeah,
you have solved
you're
the
bleeding.
world's problems.
They're hungry. Like
you got a Band-Aid. You have a sandwich.
Yes. Yeah. But the interior struggles that they're gonna have to face, that'll be hard. I don't want them to suffer, but my mom didn't want me to suffer, and all of her children have suffered in many ways. So that's another phase of motherhood that you have to get through when the time comes.
Yeah, and only by his grace. I don't know how people that aren't faithful do it.
No.
Like I don't.
Oh my gosh.
I get like like a part of me is like, I don't get euthanasia at all. But another part of me is like, I get it. Like, I get it. If you think this is it, here and now, then suffering is mean and horrible, and you don't want anyone to do that.
Or if you believe that God is a God that like looks at you and doesn't
Angry
care that you're suffering, and then you're like,
or
I don't
you deserve this. You're
God.
a sinful people, whatever. And it's like, your God's mean.
Yeah.
I was like, no, he's not.
Yeah, like the world is so terrible
because he did it himself, right? And I think,
not that we're the cause. Like, it takes out any like personal responsibility for pain and suffering. It's all, I'm going to blame somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's how I think our society can be with a lot of stuff. I'm going to blame everybody else except, myself for what's going on. And that's selfish. So, I don't know.
Yeah, there's someone recently, I can't remember who it was, maybe Father Mike Schmitz. Someone was talking about their mom being sick a lot and suffering. I don't know if she had MS or what it was. I don't know who it was, but I was like, I want to talk to them about this. But I wanted to pick their brain because I'm like, I would love to hear from a child whose mom went through this. And I've had a couple conversations with people whose one of their parents suffered a lot, and it's like, how did you do that?
So you could do one like on if their parents physically suffered, or if like they suffered with mental health problems, because that's another thing is like, I don't want them to suffer because I'm mentally ill or something, or like my mental health is not. So that's even more of a catalyst now to take care of myself, because I realize that it's for them. Like, it's not just for me. It's for them. It's for my husband. Like, people are relying on me, and that can seem like like people are relying on me. Or it can be like, no, like people are relying on me. Yeah. And I want to be the best person that I can for them.
And I think learning how to communicate with them, and I'm still working on this, like for me, the stairs are like a huge obstacle. And so I try to go up and down them as little as possible. Yes. So like if I need something, once I come upstairs, I'm like, okay, that's it for the night. Like I can't go back down. Yeah. And so it's like asking a kid to go get me a cup of water. Yeah. I mean, like at first I feel really bad about it. Yeah. Or I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. But then I wear myself out. And so I'm like, okay, I need to humbly, and my kids are so loving and sweet and kind. No, mom, let me do it for you. And like teaching them how to serve. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, yes, I do need your help with this.
But they do kind of need to know the why. Like, yes. I find myself just snapping a little bit and yelling, and then but what I've been doing recently, and it feels so much better, is that like a little bit later, I'll be like, it's usually towards my son. I'll be like, I'm really sorry. I'm feeling this way, and that's why I just kind of like just letting them know that it's not them. Yeah. Like maybe they were wrong in a way, but like my reaction was this because I'm feeling this way, and I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. And like they're like, okay, I forgive you. And,
they're so quick to forgive, right?
Yeah, but that's like that's humbling, and they see that too, and so I found that that's really.
And I think it's good to teach them compassion too. And we live in a society where I feel like, especially mental illness has gotten so much worse and so much more prevalent. And they're going to have classmates. They're going to have friends. They're going to have other people that suffer from mental illness. And it's like, this is a way to teach them to be more compassionate.
Well, and loving. I also feel like they need to understand that adults have the same like feelings too. Yeah. Like I don't just like I'm not a robot, and I don't just like do everything and not feel anything. And so just to know like, oh, adults do. I mean, I don't really say like I'm scared, but adults do get angry. They do get frustrated. They do get anxious. So just to get them to think about your feelings a little bit more too is not a bad thing, because then they'll think about other people's feelings. Yeah. I think it's very hard for them to go outside of like a little bubble of it's more me, and you're teaching them that's the beauty of like, even if you can't have a large family, like if you do, it's not about you. It's not all about you. It is a little bit about you. but you need to realize that there are people around you.
Yeah.
Be aware of that. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the younger we can learn it, the better. So I think that poor only children have a huge disadvantage, right?
My husband's an only child.
Huge disadvantage, as I said. No, I'm just. But it is. It's like you don't learn that. I mean, some people naturally, but I think when you have siblings, you learn very quickly. It's not just about you.
Yeah.
Like this is about all of us, and yeah, it's good to teach kids that. Okay, so as far as so you said making sure you get some you time. I'm thinking of like concrete things that you can think that in this season are helpful for
Okay, so and
for you.
I'm really, really excited about this, but it hasn't happened yet. We've never had, like, we have a great community, but as you know, in Georgia, everybody's 40 minutes away, 30 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and like,
they're close if they're 20 minutes.
Yeah, and we don't have family, like, close. Like, they can help if we plan ahead of time.
Right.
But, like, in a pinch, in a snap, if I, like, really need somebody, I don't really have any. And so many people also are like, I'm sorry, I can't help you out because I've got this and my kids are doing this. And I'm like, where's my village? Like, I need a village. And so we are starting the process with at least 3 other families are starting it as well right now to build on a large piece of property that's been divided. And they have, like, our children all go to the same school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they're at home doing the same work because several of them match up with grades. And
I'm so excited.
I'm like, that is my village. Like, I need that so much. And also just like with animals, like we've always had to have like an animal sitter come to our house. Like when we have to go out of town or for our dog and we have to pay someone. And it's like, no, when we're out there, like, you watch my dog this week, we'll watch your dog next week. Like, you just kind of...
Yeah, watch the chickens, get the eggs.
And, like, you're just helping each other out.
We have neighbors down the road that have chickens, and we love chicken sitting for them.
Yeah.
And we just get the eggs. And the kids and I love looking after them.
You don't feel like you have to pay somebody like $300, and you don't dread going out of town because you have goats.
And then you're like, oh, it's so much more expensive. It's like, no, let us take care of it. And there is something to be said for walking distance community. And what's funny is there's so many great people that live here in town, but we don't see the ones that live on the other side of town.
Yeah.
They're like a 5-minute drive.
Yeah.
We have to choose to see them. We're people on our street. We walk up and down the street.
Like, if you plan ahead, you might be like, in 2 weeks, we're going to go to their house for dinner.
Yeah.
Oh, another one.
I'm sorry. Where was
this
that
is
thing?
dangerous.
I think I dropped it.
So I've never had that. Like, I was talking to my husband yesterday, and the closest thing that I ever had to that was that when I was younger, I was able to ride my bike to my aunt and uncle's house in the next neighborhood, and then my grandpa lived the neighborhood over, and then my other cousins lived the neighborhood. Like, we all lived
that is cool,
really close to each other, and we got together all the time. And it was such a wonderful, beautiful time. And I had like a little bit of independence because I could ride my bike over there, and then I'd have to call my mom and tell her that I got there. And if I forgot, she'd call. And
I'd ride my bike around my neighborhood, but we never had family that close.
Yeah, we did. And then we moved a little further out, and we had neighbors still, but like nobody lined up with me. And we still got together as a family, but it just wasn't the same as like when pretty much everybody lived in this little circle. And I just have wonderful memories of that. And my children have one cousin and an adoptive one, that we don't see very often because we all live in different states. Yeah. And my husband and I got married, and my next sibling to get married was 10 years later. So I already had 4 kids. And so I know that the way that I grew up, that's not what my kids are going to have. But they're going to be out on this property just going crazy, swimming in the river and hopefully having animals and growing stuff and just having community. And we are getting to know these people more and more and, already know them. It's not like they're strangers. That would be interesting to.
But you'll get to know them so much more, especially when
like those will become my people. And luckily, like I really love them already. so that is something that I look forward to.
Yeah.
Like, it's just this exciting thing that's coming, and I really hope that it ends up being as great as I think it will be. But along with that, like, how I'm so hopeful about that, like, I've never been without hope.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is huge.
It's like somebody who's looking for a cure to something, or like to feel better, and they just keep trying one thing after another. I'm sure you feel like this.
I do,
well, maybe this
so.
vitamin will help. And like being really excited and like, oh no, not this one. Well, maybe this
The next
therapy
thing
will help.
The next thing,
Yeah.
I'll be healed.
Yeah. And I kind of feel that way.
Lord's.
Like,
Lord's is my final thing. I'm like, all right, Lord. I know, even like receiving today, I'm like, Lord, you could physically heal me completely right now. If you want to wait to Lord's, that's fine. But after Lord's, I'm going to be really upset. Like, I'm okay, every little thing. I'm like, all right, Lord, like, if this is redemptive suffering, like, this is what you're calling me to for whatever reason, by your grace, give me the grace to get through.
Oh, I ask for healing, like, every day.
Yeah, me too.
Like, especially, like, when I receive the Eucharist. I'm like, Lord, please heal me. Please heal me. But it's not the kind of, like, faith where if I'm not healed, I won't believe anymore.
Right, no.
Because I haven't been healed.
Yeah. And it's knowing that it's only by His grace getting from point A to B, right? Day by day. Like, you need that grace.
Yeah. So I would say, like, you know, I think some of the decisions that I made as a teenager contributed to, like, my current state, and they were bad things, but, like, they've made me a better person. They've contributed to my my suffering, which has therefore contributed to my trust in the Lord.
Your sanctification.
So, you know, as much as I might hate them, or as much as my husband might hate them, you know, God works through it all. Yeah. And so that's another reason, like, as a parent, I'm sure my parents would have preferred me not to have done those things. They couldn't stop me, and I can't stop my children from making decisions that will then maybe in turn be their sanctification. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Matt, a good friend of ours, when I was pregnant with our first, Matt said to him, were you not afraid of messing up your children? It's like, of course I'm going to stuff up my children and mess them up. Who am I to deny them the healing power of Christ? I'm just going to make sure they know where to go to get healing.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm just going to point them towards Jesus.
Amen.
It's like, I may have messed you up. You may mess yourself up. But that guy, that's where you go to get healed.
That's what my parents did.
Yeah.
I knew where to get healed.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
It like takes a load off, too, being a parent, right? You're like, yeah, you're going to stuff
up. And
okay.
You have to trust in that. Like, they still have to trust, like, with certain siblings. Like, they still have to trust in that. So that's like a lesson for them as well. Like, yeah, as much as I might mess them up. What did you just say? That beautiful thing you just said. Who am I to deny them
the healing power of Christ?
The healing power of Christ. Yeah. That's beautiful. I really
and I think also letting them know, like, we stuff up. Like, I don't know if your parents were like this, but I feel like we stuff up.
We stuff up?
Yeah, like, we mess up. We stuff up. Like, I was of the generation where my parents said, do what I say because I said so. And they never were wrong. They were always right. We were always wrong.
Yeah.
And there was no room in that. And I would get so frustrated, or like, why? And it's like, if you could explain to me why, then I can do this.
You wanted to argue, and you wanted to argue, and you did.
Probably. So maybe, yeah, I did push back for sure. But I think that there's something to admitting when you're wrong to your kids. And saying, I shouldn't have yelled at you. Please forgive me.
There's something to expecting obedience and respect.
That's true too. Yes.
And getting it, but then and the kid, you know, respecting that. But then, yeah, if you are wrong, coming back. And I mean, John Henry, my husband, is really good at that. At, you know,
being wrong. No, I was just like, yes. No, but admitting when he is wrong. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like.
Matt's like that too. It's so much easier for him to say, I messed up, please forgive me. And I'm like, I do it I'm not as good at it. I'm like, I mean, maybe I could see how you thought I messed up. And Matt's like, that's not an apology. And I'm like, I'm trying. He's like, try harder.
He's also really good at, like, lovingly discipline. Like, if I could choose someone to discipline in our house, it would be him. He's so good. And I it's because our children know how much that they love him.
Yeah.
And I'm not like a super touchy-feely person. I don't love like snuggling with everybody, and I'm not like constantly hugging and kissing them. Whereas he is, and he's constantly telling them too.
You're amazing. I love you.
Yes. And he's so good at that. And so I feel like when he does get mad at them, it doesn't matter. Like, it does matter.
But they know he loves them.
Yes. Yeah. Whereas me, I feel like I struggle with that. And that's just another thing that, like...
That's fair. I struggle with that more so, too. Yeah.
I want to be.
Yeah. I think it may be I don't know if it's a personality thing. I think it's also, like, we are with them so many more hours a day.
Yeah.
That I think maybe our bandwidth can get...
Oh, yeah. Like, you're touched out. Like,
yeah.
You know, after... I'm not nursing or anything, but after nursing, and then somebody's always in my bed.
Yes.
And so my 8-year-old's, like, just, like, clinging onto me, and I'm like...
Just get a little space.
Touching me. Yeah. Especially in church. And I just want to, like, pray and pay attention. And they're just, like, they're touching me.
See, that's funny. In church, I'm the opposite. Like, church is when I want to, like, I'm like, we're sitting here, might as well reconnect. I'll rub your back. I'll give you a hug. Or, like, even today, one of my daughters had her head on my shoulder. Like, she was, like, kind of, and we're not very affectionate, but I feel like that's when we're the most affectionate.
Well, I just have to tell myself, just do it. Do it because... You know, go outside of yourself.
Yes.
And what you want, and do this for them because it makes them feel loved.
Yes.
So, yeah, I do. I have to do that. Whereas my husband's the opposite. He's like, everybody, let's all this stuff. I'm like, don't touch me.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Another way motherhood brings you out of yourself in a certain way. I mean, some moms are really good at that, but then they really hate other things, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think different seasons too. Like, I know some moms that love teenage years, or other moms that love, like, elementary school, or others that, like, love baby. Like, I loved baby stage.
Yeah.
I know some people don't love that stage, but I love it. Like,
I think I do. I love reading to my children.
Do you?
I love it. And ever since they were, like, and that's something that I'm really proud of. And I'll admit it, like, I am proud of the fact that, like, since they were little, I have read to them, and they have heard so many books.
Yeah,
you know,
and Matt's better at reading to them.
And John Henry's terrible because he falls asleep. He'll fall asleep, and so, like, you know, if it's anything to do with the morning or anything earlier, he's good at it. He's bad. Yeah, he's good at it. And then I'm better. But, like, the more stressful, like, especially homeschool days are, I don't want to read anymore. Like, especially on those days. Yeah. And also because we live in a tiny house and all of our children sleep in the same room because we're waiting to build. Yeah. And so nighttime is like it's 4 children in one room. It's not a big room. All their toys are in there. There's clothes all over the floor. There's toys all over the floor. And I'm like...
That adds a whole nother level of,
If this was all clean and everybody was calm, then I would absolutely love to read to you. But first, everybody has to clean up. And you all need to be quiet and be still and listen to me. Yeah. So
I feel like that's when we started just doing audiobooks at night, especially when Matt was traveling. I was like, I am exhausted.
Let's punt this to somebody else.
Yes. And it was something that I could do, and we still do. Or the kids like Adventures in Odyssey too.
Oh, my kids!
But it was like I was just done by the evening, and I'm like, I can't read a book. I am so tired. Like, but I can listen to a book. I can lay and cuddle with you and listen to a book. But I felt like for me to actually read it, I think I would be stressed over, don't touch each other, don't fight, oh, fine, I'm not even going to read this book. And then it, like, ends in a big negative thing versus I'm like, this guy is a professional reader, press play, listen to his story, like, this is nice, we can enjoy it.
And have it the different ages also. Like, if it were just my oldest 2 or just my youngest 2, it would be different, but it's all of them. And so it's actually really nice when, like, the younger 2 will just, like, kind of fall asleep. Mm-hmm. And then I can read to the older 2. But I realize, like, they're going to phase out of being read to. And then, you know, the 2 younger ones, I need to start to read all those books over again. Yeah. There's a really good book. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's called Honey for a Child's Soul. Yeah. Is that what it is?
Is it Sarah Mackenzie? Is that it? No, I've read that one.
It's just about how beautiful, like, books are and reading and how good it is for children. And then it has, like, this huge list of recommendations. Yeah, I have it downstairs. Love it. Such a good book. And you know, it also, like, talks about incorporating scripture, which we're not as good at. And she's like, every day after dinner, my husband opens the Bible and we read the Bible and then we talk about it. And I'm like, that is so beautiful. Like, oh man, I wish that like my husband was like that. And then I'm like, that's just not us, probably.
But
And
that's
if
okay.
I force him to like do that, he doesn't want to be forced to do anything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
I
could
think we
suggest
also
it
have so many
nicely.
other things though, right? So maybe you pray the Angelus as a family, or maybe you do the rosary, or maybe you do like night prayer or morning prayer, or like there's so many other things that, I think that
But in my perfectionism, I'm like, we don't read the Bible. Like, my kids are not reading the Bible. We're not like, we're not good Catholic. We're just the stereotypical Catholics that don't know scripture. And like someone,
but they do in the aspect that like if they know some of the mysteries of the rosary, or if they know the commandments,
they do.
And I think we do it more liturgical, right? So like in Lent, we're focusing.
I just don't know if they're listening during church
or at home, like when you talk about it, or
at school. One really cool thing that they do at school, is that during religion class on Thursdays they read the gospel and they do like that gospel reflection type thing.
Yes.
So they're
doing Lectio.
Yeah,
Lectio Divina.
And then they come up with they talk about it, and then they come up with a resolution, like as a class. And I'm supposed to ask on Friday, well, what is your resolution? They're like, I don't know. They did write it down, but sometimes it will just take like their default answers, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, like what was the reading about? Oh, well, it was about this. I'm like, you have to just ask them.
Yeah, and I think finding things for their little prodding. Did you ever get that Lego catechism?
Yes.
Kids? Yeah.
Loved it. Like Henry, my son loved it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the comic book one, like it's actually falling apart, and we didn't tell him to read that at all.
He just got into it.
He's like, so you're right. It is happening.
There's so many. I'm like, I know that your kids are getting it.
It is happening.
It's just not, you're not opening the Bible.
Yeah, I feel like everything
you're doing
has
so
to be
many other things.
Me and my children sitting in front of me, and I am teaching them, and like that's not necessarily the only way that kids learn.
I interviewed this woman from Tan Academy. It's like a homeschool thing for Tan Press.
Cool.
And it was great. We had a good conversation, but she was talking about like religion books. I'm like, I've never taught my kids from a religion book.
Yeah.
That's not true. When we did homeschool hybrids, we did. But for the most part, I'm like, I don't worry about religion because it's so much ingrained in our life. They're getting it. Or we have priests over or sisters over, or we're at Franciscan listening to a talk, or we'll go to these debate nights or whatever. Like, I'm not worried about making sure they learn the things. So there was something, I don't even remember what it was. So one of the kids asked, I'm like, surely you know this, right? We've covered this. Like, but it's like, you know what? There's going to be holes. Yeah. But that's not something that I'm like making sure we are doing. Yeah. The catechism or whatever. Yeah. It's like, we're going to get
going from page 1 to 100. Like,
yes.
And every page is.
Yeah. And some people need to do it and they like having the book. And I'm just not one of those people. Like like right now, for going to France, we're studying about those saints.
The French.
You know? And like, then they're going to go to their homes and see, like a lot of us have miraculous medals, not everyone, but like learning about Catherine Labouré and then being like, that's her body right there. Praying in the chapel. This is the miraculous medal.
I want to go on pilgrimages with my children. Yeah. My husband just wants to, anywhere he wants to go, there's something hunting related there. But
Matt doesn't like taking now that they're older, it's different. But when they were little, he didn't like it.
Like seeing the Eucharistic miracles and like just, I mean, the first time that I went on a pilgrimage, I was 19, like a foreign pilgrimage. I was 19 or 18, and it was just life changing, and it was so cool. But one thing, I think it was Saint Ignatius of Loyola, right? Who was like sick and confined and read the lives of the saints, and that's how he converted. So I also am trying now to like add in easy to read like saints books, not like the really thin ones, but like actual biographies, because I get so much out of them.
Hallow has some great saint stories and bedtime stories, and you could just listen, so it's great, like on the Hallow app.
Yeah,
that I really enjoy. And then also, it's another app that you can do it, but they also make the CDs. It's the Ode to Saint Cecile, Saint Patrick, Robin Hood. I think they do Saint Francis of Assisi. Formed.
Oh, okay.
Formed has a bunch of those that are great. In fact, we gotta bust out Formed again. We used to have like the app on the TV, and we'd watch. Like we gave up TV except for the Formed app for Lent one year,
Yeah.
and we just watched all these saint movies, and the kids really enjoyed it.
We need to do that because I don't even know our TV's not hooked up to anything.
Ours isn't either.
But
when it
just
was-
like find like I told you, I found this Saint Padre Pio, and I've been to San Giovanni Rotondo. Like I knew of him, but I almost had like forgotten. It's like when I read about a saint, they almost become like my best friend, and I'm like,
yes,
I love you so much, and then I start to like forget about them. But
that's the beauty of it. They don't mind. Like they'll still pray for you.
But
intercede for
I
you.
read a book about Saint Padre Pio, and of course, like he's much more like he's recent,
Yes,
and he has a lot of like dramatic things.
Yes.
You know, like the stigmata and the bilocation and reading souls and all that stuff. And so my daughter in particular, she was like, oh, like, can I have that book? Like my kids were almost like fighting over it. And she asks for like me to give her lots of stuff. And so I was like, sure. And she's like, I really want to show this to my teacher. Anyways, she said she was really inspired by the book, and now she's reading it again, and she's like, 1900? That wasn't that long ago. Like,
yeah.
and you know, to read a mixture of all different time periods so that they know, like, you can be a saint. Like, there are saints now. Is super important.
Yeah, the kids found a park down the road. It's not a park. There's woods down the street that they made their own like clubhouse type thing, and there was a bunch of broken glass. I'm sure people were like drinking in there or whatever. It's like broken beer bottles. None of the kids realized it was broken beer bottles, but when us adults saw it, we're like, sorry, what are you doing with all the broken glass? They made a shrine. I'll have to put, I can take you over and show you, or I took a picture, I can show it to you. But they found like a piece of like stone that they carved into and scratched on it and did little flowers all around it and put Saint Kateri Tekakwitha and made a cross. And then they've done all these broken pieces of beer bottles all over, and the kids are like
treasures.
They're treasures, and they made this and so they made a chapel. They're like, this is our chapel, this is our kitchen, and they've created these different rooms, and they've made like this outdoor fort down the street, and it's so cool, and it's beautiful, and I was like, why Saint Kateri? And they were like, you know, because we were outdoors and she was outdoors, and we figured, and so we named the chapel after her, and like it was just beautiful. And they're like playing house, and like what we would see is, ew, gross, this is a horrible area.
And that's trash.
I'm like, everyone needs to wear shoes when they come in here. But they're like, let's bring it for the glory of God. Like, this is our chapel, this is our stained glass, and they love it. And they found berries and put it in as well. And they like decorated this chapel, and they're like, we're going to encourage people not to kneel in our chapel because they could cut up their knees. I'm like, good call. Let's just stand in your lovely little chapel.
Well, your kids are awesome. I don't think my kids have done that, but
when they get older, like, you'll be surprised. Well, it was also neighbor kids too. But I just love I love the simplicity of it, or making it more tangible.
So I get really, when I'm homeschooling my two oldest, I'm like, little one, like my 6 and 4-year-old, I'm like, please go away, like go somewhere else. And they do, and they're like in their room for hours, and I feel guilty. I'm like, I haven't paid any attention to those two, and like, you know, I feel like I need to be like talking to them, or like, it's just that mom guilt, like.
But they're having a blast.
And they're having,
come up with stuff.
Why do I feel guilty about that? Like, why do I feel like a bad mom? Because my two children are like laughing in the other room playing with each other. Yeah. And like, since I've been here, like I woke up.
My kids are loud.
Yeah, but it's the beauty, like it's happy noises.
Yeah,
I don't think I've heard anyone like crying.
No.
And like out on the trampoline, like screaming, laughing.
Yeah,
like,
I was just looking out a minute ago. My grill is open, and they have bowls, and I think they were pretending to make food. And I get angry because like my cast iron pot's out there covered in chalk. I'm like, why did you pick but it's like, it's joyful stuff, right? And
my
it's like,
strainer and my.
Yes. And it's like, why did you put mud through the strainer? But it's like, okay, this is part of being a kid, and the joy.
And if your children are happy, like think about how many children are not happy right now. Yeah. And like, like their parents really are not paying attention to them. Like,
or even in the basement today, Pancake Sunday at church. How many kids did you have to dodge so you didn't get ran into?
Yeah. I almost, fell down.
But they're having fun, and they're laughing, and they're joyful, and
So I think like it's I'm not saying like let your kids just destroy all your stuff.
No.
If they're happy, it's okay.
No.
Like, I am definitely not like that. But if they're happy, like, that is such a beautiful thing, and be grateful for that, and then yell at them for taking your blender outside or something and destroying your stuff. So, yeah.
It's all paths to our holiness, right?
Mm-hmm. And there's always hope. There's always hope. And this trip has been so fun. I was saying to John Henry, I really can't, I really think this is the first time we've been away to another state, like not the same state as our children, since our honeymoon 11 years ago. We've been away. We've been like away for a night or whatever in Georgia. We've been away as a family, but I was so looking forward to it because I knew that I just needed this.
Yeah.
But I also, like, part of my anxiety, like, I do not want to go on an airplane, and so I started like freaking out when I found out about the trip because I love to travel. You know, I want to go to France. I so badly like want to travel, but feel like a limitation. Like, I'm scared.
I also think traveling's gotten like really not nice, especially flying. I don't know why.
Sometimes I don't mind it at all, but like right now, like I'm gonna have a panic attack. Like,
but you did it
in the airport, and so. You know, it just was like weighing on me. Like, I want to go so bad, but I'm so scared. I want to go so bad, but I'm so scared. But I just knew that like it would be really good because I just needed to be able to like not wake up to people being like, "Mom,
I need you.
This person did this to me," or "Can I eat this?" And I'm just like, "Yes." I'm really, really a weak person in the morning. Like, in terms of, my kids could literally ask me for anything and I would say yes.
Yes. Just to have another 5 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's awful. And I think, like, they don't normally take advantage of me, but they totally could.
Yeah.
And actually, they do sometimes with, like, TV. Can we watch another movie? Sure. And, like, this is, like, their second one. Luckily, like, they don't watch too much TV. Like, I'm not criticizing if kids do. Like, we have the reign on that, but they've definitely manipulated me into like multiple movies in the morning before we even have.
I've come down and my kids are eating cake. I'm like, who baked a cake? One of the older ones baked a cake, and that's their breakfast. I'm like, flour, eggs.
They baked a cake.
Oh well, like flour and eggs are good for breakfast. Sugar, not so much. But it's like, okay.
Yeah, and
I'm
I also
I'm gonna deal with this after. Let's just try to focus on school, and I will deal with the mess. But yeah, I think it's trying to have hope in the moment, and then they clean up the kitchen after, and it's like okay, I don't. Just so we know, let's go over breakfast foods again.
This is
cake
what you
is
can
not
eat.
On the breakfast food list.
We actually, for as healthy as I try to be, the day after a birthday, we allow cake for breakfast.
Nice.
That's the only time. Or like if there was cake for something really special, you could have cake for breakfast the next morning.
There's a comedian who talks about that, who says eggs, flour, milk, breakfast. Chocolate cake.
Normally I would say no. Another thing that I've tried to do, because I realized after being at Plug Catholic Family Land, I realized like, just in speaking to other people, I'm like, what has really helped your children to know Jesus? And some of them said like adoration, like take your kids to adoration. And it's hard. Like, our parish doesn't really offer, like, you might be limited in that sense where like they don't have confession that often, and that's sad, and they don't have adoration that often, and that's sad, and you kind of really have to like find when it is and like rearrange your schedule so that you can attend the one time that they have it. But I thought this would make my life easier because I have a hard time getting out of bed in general on Mondays, which Mondays are the worst. They're always the worst. And we have Fridays and Mondays at home. And so sometimes work gets pushed to Monday that was supposed to be done on Friday, which makes Mondays even worse. So like when we get home, like that was the only thing about the trip. I was like, I know that like I'm walking into like some catch up when I get home, but it's okay. But what I started doing is on Monday morning at 9:30, our church has mass, and it's just a daily mass, so
that's
it's
a nice
pretty
time,
quick.
9:30.
So we go to mass, and then I take them out for breakfast. So we have that grace to start our week. No breakfast dishes, and then when we get home, we start schoolwork.
Okay. And do you find that works well?
It has. Like last Monday, everybody was coughing. So in my slumber, I'm like, we're not going to mass.
Do you know what I used to do when we lived in Georgia because of Chick-fil-A? I'd pick a subject. So we normally try to get math done before we go. But once everyone finishes math and maybe another school assignment, we go to Chick-fil-A and then we get breakfast there. And then I'd have like an older kid looking after younger kids in the playground and the playroom area. And we'd do schoolwork one by one. And then we'd take turns. But then we'd be there as they switched over to lunch. And they often would give their breakfast, whatever is left over, free. So my kids would eat, like, I buy breakfast, and then they get more free breakfast that they'd eat for lunch. Gosh. And then we finished schooling. And it was the best. Schooling at Chick-fil-A is so awesome.
And during the weekday... shut down their playground, though.
Oh, is it still shut down?
Ours are.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For the most part.
We don't even have a Chick-fil-A.
They, like, because they do so much, like, delivering and stuff now, it's like an office.
Oh.
The playground is still there, but it's like an office. And so much like drive-through stuff. I don't. Hopefully they'll open up again. But yeah,
just nice. I like that idea though. That's a good idea. We have
like that.
So we have 8 a.m. mass, which I just find is
hard.
It is hard. We have noon mass. Oh gosh, that thing's behind you. Careful. We have noon mass, which I like, but it's an hour or sometimes an hour and 15, depending on who's given the homily, because it's at Franciscan. But it's nice. But if we haven't finished schooling by then, it's so hard to come back
That's like in the middle of the day. Yeah, like you either have to do it like there's also like a night mass, but I know, and I would love to like do that as a family. There's a night mass on Wednesdays, but I know that just John Henry is too tired to do that at night, and like you just have to pick your battles. Like
and we are really blessed that we have multiple confession times between the university and our church.
Yeah,
we have multiple times to pull for confession, and then we also just have friends that are priests that will be like, our family needs to go.
Yeah,
and they'll hear it. They're so great about it.
We have another parish like right by the kids' school, and they actually have more adoration times and more confession.
And they have a great chapel. I love that chapel.
They have they have not adoration all the time, but like from
a lot of the time.
Monday to Tuesday, like 24 hours.
And I also think when you have little kids, I used to think like it's not worth, I don't know why I thought this, but it's not worth going unless you can spend an hour. I'm sorry, if you go in and wave hi to Jesus, that's great. And then you can leave. Like taking young children in for however long. It could be a minute, it could be 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's fine.
Say that thing that you said again. The thing that woman said to Matt. No one can deny them. Oh.
Yeah. It was, who am I to deny my child the healing power of Christ?
Okay. So also, I always thought like my kids are not praying when they're in there. Like it's just me and they're just kind of like la-di-da-di-da. You never know when, like that is Jesus.
Yeah.
He will speak to them.
Yeah. Whether
or not they're listening or not. If you put them in those moments where he can speak to them and they have the right disposition, he will. And so, you know, that's one thing that we never did growing up. Like we didn't go to adoration. We were Catholic, and there were a lot of like great formation things, but I would say not so much like traditional Catholic things like rosary, adoration, confession.
Us either. Yeah.
So,
and I think that is a grace. Like even our kids. So one of my daughters was having a play date with another girl, and that mom was going to take her daughter to confession first, and then come pick up my daughter. And I told my daughter, and she's like, "Oh, I actually want to go." And I was like, "Oh, I'll have them." And then my other 2 kids were like, "No, we want to go too." And I was like, "Oh, okay, we'll all go to confession." So we just met them there.
Yeah.
And then we're in line, and my youngest was 7 at the time, and he's like, "Okay, so do I say, 'Father, please forgive me, it's been 3 days since my last confession'?" And I laughed. I was like, "No, you have to tell him how many days it's been. Like, it's been what, like 2 weeks?" And he's like, and then one of my older kids corrected me. He's like, "No, Dad took us 3 days ago." And I'm like, "Oh, cool.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's awesome." So like my kids really wanted to go again, and it had been 3 days. And it's like they don't always go. My kids do not go every 3 days, but in this situation, it just happened to be. But I'm like, I love that there's not a fear, because I had a fear with confession, and I was like, I would be like in sweats, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to think about all the things, because it had been like multiple years.
Oh, well, my daughter is just overly scrupulous, and she's like, she's new, she's only been to confession a couple times, and she like didn't want to go because she didn't know her act of contrition. And I'm like, just go in there and tell the priest you don't know it. Like, he's not going to yell at you. And she's like, no, and like, what do I say? What do I say here? She just was like so worried about getting something wrong. And usually now they have like an act of contrition written there. And There's so many active contritions. It's so confusing.
Yeah,
it's
it
like
is. Yeah.
we all just need to pick one as a family and just say that one. So, yeah, she ended up like finally going, but it was like her anxiety and over the scrupulosity where I'm like, that shouldn't keep you from going.
Yeah,
like,
just go. It's fine. Yeah.
And he walked her through the
and
whole
then we
thing.
go, so my kids, when they were younger, especially, we go back and forth between Roman and Byzantine.
Yeah.
And so I remember the first time Peter went to a Roman priest, he was just like, I don't know anything that I'm supposed to do or say. I'm like, just tell him when you go in.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've never been to this type. I go to the type that you go, and the priest is like, and he's like, there's like an icon of Jesus. And so he's like trying to like explain you go, like, cause you have to like have your mouth back. But like, that's his thing. He's like, is this a church or a church? And he just didn't have the words.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, most priests are happy to hear. And like, even adults, like, it's okay if you forget that.
It's endearing to have like a child in there.
Yes.
Like, I feel like
beautiful.
it just, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this with me. I appreciate
welcome.
it. Yeah.
I feel like I'm laying back now.
I know.
You're
You get
welcome.
more relaxed. I feel like I'm sitting up now, and I don't know. But thank you, ladies, so much for tuning in. And I love, see the thing that you said again about the,
Severe mercy.
yes, severe mercy. I feel like those are the two main things that I
What
really
about
want to
it?
take away. Just go.
Like God knows better than I do. And maybe those things that I am and was begging for are not his will. And the suffering is a severe mercy. And will teach me things that I need. Maybe the things that I want will not be good for me.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I love
Maybe
that.
that's not the best thing for me.
Yeah. And I think even just being open to that. Like,
Yeah.
obviously his will is best.
Yes.
So.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Angie. I
Thank you.
appreciate you coming on.